Hi! So today I want to talk about everything I regret about my early 20s. Just gonna adjust y'all. There we go. So my early 20s were a bit of a mess, and I'm by no means trying to reflect on a period of life that I'm now mourning because it's gone. Like, I'm not 30 yet. I'm not anywhere close to 30. I also need to stop building this fear of being 30 in my mind. That's a whole nother video topic in itself. A lot of these lessons revolve around some key qualities about myself. I am the eldest child. I was raised by South Asian immigrant parents, and if you're interested in that part of my background, I've actually got a video on lessons about money and life that I've learned from my parents. I'm gonna link it up here and you can go have a look at that because I love them. While I was thinking about, what I could talk about for this video, I made a little picture in my mind of me at 21. And me at 21 was living for other people. I've got a little list here on my laptop. So, me at 21, I was living for other people. I was scared of money. I was doing everything for my parents' validation, as tends to be the story in South Asian families. Doing well, achieving, being a high achiever is the thing that kind of shaped a lot of my decisions and what I thought I wanted to do. I spoke to myself really badly. I still do, but I could never really commit to anything or be dedicated to anything. I hated being wrong. And I thought I had to fit into a box. This box was being funny, smart, likable, being a value provider to society and my friends. I thought that was fitting into that box was the be all and end all. That was what life is about. I was also incredibly depressed, and I talk about depression a little bit on my social media, but I haven't really dedicated any, airtime on my YouTube channel to this, but let's expand. So living for other people. I'm gonna group this in with the thought I had to fit into a box phase or point of my life, and to a certain extent I am still doing this because you can't really become better overnight at something. You can't become self-aware and suddenly be able to get rid of all these qualities that you don't like about yourself. Living for other people is something I think a lot of people struggle with, potentially and most likely without even realizing. If you ask yourself, whenever you're doing something that you consider a hobby, meet your friend to drink, playing a sport, anything, ask yourself, who are you doing it for? Like, why are you actually there? And keep asking yourself why. Why are you actually there? Someone invited me. Why did you have to go because someone invited you? You'll eventually kind of figure out that maybe the reason that you're in that place doing that activity is not out of your own will or your own want to do that. It's not going to apply to everything that you do, but it did apply to a lot of things that I was saying yes to in my life during my early 20s and my late teens. I was not really respecting things that I wanted to do for myself, and I was doing things for other people for the reason of being liked by them because I wasn't rejecting them, being sociable, being funny, and this is obviously just like people pleasing and at its finest. How do you get rid of this, or how do you change it? You can't. You just have to learn to respect your own boundaries and put those boundaries in place. How do you even do that? You find a boundary by figuring out what you're doing that's purely for other people and really just not for yourself. Like 100% of it is for someone else. The boundary there is needed because that's not serving you in any way. And why do something that's not serving you in any way? And that can be a little bit controversial because what if it's serving society or serving someone that you love? Well, that's what you have to think about when you're setting this boundary. Like, do you want to do that activity or be with that person every single day, every single time they ask you to be with them? You have to think about maybe reducing how much you live for other people and just kind of weaning that off slowly. And the flip side to this is doing more for yourself. The more you do for yourself, the more you'll automatically do less for other people, because the more you kind of appreciate yourself and what you want to do with your life and what you want to say yes to, the more you'll kind of subconsciously make less time to not do those things. If setting boundaries is something that you struggle with or something you just don't feel like tackling right now, maybe just choose what you actually want to do with your time and do those things slowly. If you introduce like this new way of living into your life a little bit more slowly, it's something that you can kind of adapt to and then make, the way you live your life, rather than just quitting certain activities cold turkey and then just becoming this new person without any explanation. Being scared of money, and this is scared of money in loads of different aspects. I was scared of learning about money, I was scared of earning more money, I was scared of losing money, I was scared of, there's so many aspects about money that I was scared of. This is all because of scarcity mindset, and it's just something that I think when you grow up in a family that has, left all of their loved ones, their relationships, their whole lives behind to try and pursue a new and better life for you in a different country, in a different environment, I think scarcity mindset is something that just comes off the back of doing that. Like, you're constantly trying to provide, you're constantly trying to make sure that giving up all of these freedoms and relationships and leaving your life behind is actually going to be worth it, and is actually going to change the next generation of your family. You know, trying to put myself in my parents' perspective. That scarcity mindset is something that just creeps up and then naturally will just bleed into your children's habits, because how you experience money growing up really shapes how you then save, spend, invest, earn your money in your adult years. That was certainly the case for me, but I'm obviously trying to learn and change a lot more now, and it was all really sparked by a really strong will to not feel like that, to not be scared of money. Generally just being fed up with constantly being in fear of it, or constantly having anxiety around it, and deciding to tackle it. And reaching that boiling point for me took a while, and a lesson I have about money for anyone who's got anxiety around it is to really do potentially some journaling, but just really do a deep dive into why you feel the way you do feel about money, and just tackle it head on as early as possible. Doing everything for my parents' validation. I think this is a really difficult one, and I'm quite honestly still struggling with it. I still don't know how to do things for my own validation. Letting go of needing your parents to congratulate you, to be proud of you, to want to boast about you, especially in a South Asian family, is really difficult, because you've spent your whole life trying to get that, and suddenly realizing that, you know, if your life does depend on that, you're never going to be satisfied. You're always going to be wanting to do more. And as brutal as this will sound, your parents' validation really doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of things, because it's only your validation, your internal validation, you feeling proud, successful, and happy is what actually counts. I guess regardless of this being your parents or not, I do wish that I let go of that earlier, because wanting my parents' validation is the reason I studied what I studied at uni. It's the reason I got my grad job. It's the reason, and it's not the reason I got my job, it's the reason I went for a job in a certain industry to get a certain job. That's what I mean. It just drove too many decisions that I wish were more for me, that I thought about a bit more, rather than thinking, what are my parents going to want to boast about next? And this in turn led me to speaking to myself really badly in my head. I still do it, and I was telling my partner a story the other day where I was going to my friend's house for a barbecue, and I meant to take a bottle of wine because it was a daytime barbecue and I just wanted to sip on some wine. I called the Uber, I got into the Uber, and I forgot the bottle of wine. And the whole Uber ride, I was being so mean to myself about forgetting this bottle of wine. I was calling myself an idiot. I was calling myself worse names. I've ruined my budget, a bottle of wine. I've ruined my budget for the month. I'm gonna be the loser that's not drinking. Like, all this stuff, and to be honest, worse stuff I was saying in my head to myself about forgetting one bottle of cheap wine to my friend's barbecue. And it was at the end of the journey, when I was finished berating myself, that I kind of checked myself, and I was like, whoa, you forgot a bottle of wine, that's it. Like, what? Okay. This was just a couple of weeks ago, and I've spent the entire year, like this year, it's been one of my goals to speak to myself with more compassion. So this was only a couple of weeks ago. My point being, if I had that period, 5-minute, 10-minute Uber ride of scolding myself in my head this time last year, I probably wouldn't have realized I did it. The fact that I was able to get to the end of the Uber ride and go, whoa, you just said something really mean to yourself. Can we just rewind? Like, it's fine. You've got the bottle of wine. Nothing's gonna happen. You're not an idiot. You're like, it's fine. That would not have happened. So I have made progress, but you can imagine the scale of me berating myself, how bad that was in my early 20s. Any mistake I made, I would really, really be hard on myself. And it wasn't even outright mistakes. I would berate myself for waking up late, for not going to the gym, for literally just like going about my day, not doing the things that I maybe kind of wanted to do. I would really scold myself so hard. And even during conversations with friends, sometimes I catch myself in my head, oh my god, you're so boring, this person thinks you're so boring, why are you still trying to talk to them, why haven't you just left this conversation yet? This is how I speak to myself in my head, and you can imagine the consequence of speaking like that to myself, how that would have really affected my self-esteem in my early 20s. And this is kind of what led to me people pleasing a lot, is because I'm constantly putting myself down, so I'm kind of seeking that validation from other people, my parents, and it's kind of like a vicious cycle. So I kind of wish I just had this self-aware realization a little bit earlier. I didn't even realize that speaking to yourself internally badly wasn't a normal thing. To be honest, realizing that it wasn't a normal thing has only come from the likes of Therapy Talk and anyone on Therapy Talk. Generally, therapists having social media accounts has genuinely just changed my life a little bit, because there's just a lot more free information out there now. I've been able to, as Kylie very eloquently put it, have a couple of years worth of realizing stuff. Another thing I was really bad at was, never being able to commit to anything, and I still struggle with that. It was definitely something that came off the back of talking to myself really badly, because I would go to the gym inconsistently. I would join sports societies at uni and drop out, or just I would stop taking part after a couple of weeks, and then I would berate myself about it. But then I would berate myself while I was at these activities, because I was surrounded by people who were dedicated, who had put in that time and effort. So again, these are a little bit consequential. My commitment issues have just been horrendous. They're also, I think, slightly linked to money. I think committing to something really teaches you a lot of different skills about like dedication, willpower, motivation, discipline, which is something that I'm really just embodying and living and breathing now. But it's a personality trait that I wish I kind of uncovered and worked on a bit earlier in my life, because it means that things later on are a bit easier, like staying fit, staying healthy, being able to achieve your goals, no matter what they are, even if they are related to health and fitness. Commitment and me have issues, man. I hated being wrong, still hate being wrong to a certain extent, but hating being wrong just closes you off to learning. If you're wrong a lot, that means you learn a lot. If you're more open to not having decided on an opinion in your head, it just means that you will evolve as a person a lot better. You'll understand different points of view. You'll be able to think a bit more critically about things. Being able to be wrong gracefully and learn from it. It helps with your personal life, it helps with professional life, it helps you have better conversations, it helps you build better relationships as a result. I wish I could have just handled that a little bit better, a little bit earlier. Thinking that I needed to fit into a box, this is the same as people pleasing. You really only need to please yourself, and I don't know how many more manifestation coaches need to make viral videos about this, but you really need to only please yourself. Like, you need to be so selfish in everything you do, and you can still be a loving, generous, compassionate person, but also be completely selfish in like the way you live your life. Basically, if I use this box analogy, you need to draw the box based on what you want out of your life. I was listening to a podcast, and it was Diary of CEO. I hate having to reference that podcast because I feel it's like super trending right now, but it was a podcast episode on how to be happy, and I forgot who it was with, so apologies. I will link it in the screen, but basically it was about how to be happy, right? And there was like a self-assessment you could kind of do. I can't really remember. So basically, what are the values that will shape everything you do right now? And write them down, and then think ahead to you on your deathbed. What are the things that you hope that you can say you valued and you put emphasis on? And I really might be paraphrasing to the point of butchering this assessment, so I'm really sorry. This is going to be highly inaccurate. You then compare and contrast these two sets of values. So the values that you want to live by right now, and then the values that you want to have said you would live by if you're on your deathbed. And usually there's a gap. That gap is basically what forms your true values, that things that actually give you purpose and make you happy. So finding these values and finding activities that fit into these values is then how you shape this little box that you want to fit in or not fit in. I'm just using an analogy. So you don't necessarily have to be funny, smart and professional, because who cares about that, and does it even fit into a value? I do want to be funny because I want to make the people I love laugh, so I will continue trying to be funny, emphasis on trying. And finally, being depressed. This is a difficult one, because again, there's a lot of stigma in the South Asian community. Like, when I first told my parents I was depressed, do you think that went down well? No. I didn't even realize I was depressed. I just knew I was not in a good place. You know how I realized? I was walking to my uni flat one day. I think this was like peak depression as a student, and I was listening to Spotify, and a song came on that I was like obsessed with a couple years prior to that, and the song coming on just brought back all these like feelings of like a mixture of like joy, excitement. I just had like this rush of like feelings come to me, and in that moment I realized that I hadn't felt like that in a very long time. It was almost unrecognizable, like the state that my mind was in. I wasn't overjoyed or overexcited or anything. It was just the fact that I was like, oh my god, I have been depressed. It was almost like driving with a really dirty windscreen, and then suddenly your wipers come on and like wipe a little piece of the glass clear, and you can suddenly see. That's what it felt like. You didn't realize it was dirty until it was wiped clean. So yeah, I think that's when I realized I was struggling, and that I struggled consistently. I told my parents, and they just told me that I was being lazy, which is a very standard response. And so I then started telling myself that I was being lazy, which links up with, you know, speaking to yourself badly and being the root cause of all my issues. But anyway, actually addressing the fact that I have depression has helped me choose better habits and choose better things for myself to prevent depressive episodes, really. And it wasn't just a self-awareness of like, I know I have depression. It was then choosing to combat it that has particularly changed the way I live now, which I wish I would have done when I was in my early 20s. I wish I had the courage to just be like, look, I'm depressed. It's like a statement of fact. I'm depressed. What am I going to do about it? Instead of just kind of pretend I'm not, pretend I'm lazy, and just live in the cycle of that. When I reflect on that, it sounds so stupid, but mistakes always do. And that brings me to the end of this ridiculously long video. I hope this helped you reflect a little bit, and I really want you to hope that you have changed from this time last year, this time 2 years ago, because change is always good. It means you're always evolving. It means you're always becoming better. You never want to stay the same person and be saying the same things, be thinking the same things, be striving for the same things. So I really hope that my self-reflection has encouraged you to reflect a bit yourself. And if you do relate to any of these, take some action and let me know what you do. Thank you for watching this video, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.